being with us. And without further ado, we will now start with session 1.1 on the role of PISA in the monitoring of education system outcomes. And it is my pleasure to give the floor to the first moderator, who's Casey Chung, a member of the PISA Analysis and Dissemination Group and professor at the University of Macau, China. Casey,
okay, thank you. Session 1.1 is on the role of PISA in the monitoring of education system outcomes. And this session explores the role of PISA evidence in monitoring the performance of education systems. And 3 examples will be discussed. First, Christine Choi Yuk Lin, Secretary for Education, Hong Kong, China, will discuss the use of PISA data in Hong Kong to monitor performance of the education system, and in particular, the STEAM education. Okay, Dr. Choi, please.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here with you today as we explore the role of PISA in monitoring the outcomes of our education systems. In my presentation, I will share how PISA data is utilized for enhancing STEAM, that means science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics education in Hong Kong, highlighting the key initiatives and strategies implemented to drive excellence in this crucial area. Hong Kong has participated in PISA since 2002. For more than 20 years, PISA findings and data have provided an invaluable source for Hong Kong, both policymakers and educators, to monitor the learning outcomes of our students, help us focus on the key factors that shape their learning, and ensure our students are equipped with the skills necessary for success in the 21st century. To gain valuable insight from PISA results, we compile a comprehensive report for each PISA cycle, which provides detailed analysis for, first, assessing the achievement of our students in reading, mathematics, science, as well as the innovative domain. Second, understanding the strengths and weakness of our students in comparison with other countries or economics. Third, identifying the factors affecting the performance of Hong Kong students. And fourth, conducting longitudinal comparison of the performance of Hong Kong students. Given the global trend of putting emphasis on advancing STEAM education in primary and secondary schools, the Education Bureau of Hong Kong has been making reference to our students' performance in PISA, along with other key data, to review and enhance our science and mathematics curricula. This also guides our planning of various support measures to achieve STEAM education for all, for fun, and for diversity at both primary and secondary levels. While educational equity is one of the distinguished features of our education system, we strive to provide every student with opportunity to engage in STEAM exploration, to nurture our students' curiosity and intrinsic motivation in STEAM. In tandem, we are committed to stretching the full potential of individual students. Scientific activities catering for students with different abilities and learning needs are designed to enable all to enjoy success and achieving learning outcomes. Let's look more specifically at mathematics as an example. Hong Kong students have consistently performed well in PISA over the years with the support and dedication of our mathematics teachers. The PISA 2023 results reveal Hong Kong students' strength in employing process and quantity content area. However, the results also shed light on areas for further improvement, specifically in reasoning and change and relationships. Based on the results, we have some observations. First, we had our last curriculum review in mathematics in 2017, which emphasized strengthened students' basic computation skills, and we are really pleased to see positive results in this regard. Another challenge is our students' mathematical reasoning, When our students come across less familiar scenarios which requires mathematical thinking rather than mere calculation, their performance is not so outstanding. Recent PISA results also confirm our observation on students' performance. To address the issue, we launched new initiative in 2023 to increase elements of applying mathematics in the curriculum through nurturing students' ability in mathematical modeling and their data literacy. We now provide more opportunities for students to critically interpret real-world scenarios, make realistic assumptions, look for patterns and relationships through data, formulate, evaluate, and refine mathematical models. Students are required to go through a complete cycle of mathematical reasoning in ambiguous scenarios. Instead of solely solving clearly defined mathematics problems, we have been trying our new teaching approaches and connecting good practices in implementing mathematical modeling in lessons at primary and secondary level, and we will soon initiate a new round of curriculum review. The rapid evolution of artificial intelligence as well as innovation and technology has necessitated a paradigm shift in different aspects of mathematics education, including learning, teaching, and assessment. This requires educators to rethink what fundamental mathematical elements our new generation needs to become capable mathematics learners and users. To keep our teaching force abreast of the latest development and meet the challenges, we organize a large-scale training program for all secondary school mathematics teachers, focusing on the rationale and technical details of mathematical modeling education at the secondary level. We aim to plant seeds in all schools while giving teachers space to flexibly develop new pedagogies to enhance their professional capacity. Teachers of mathematics are also encouraged to collaborate with other relevant subject areas within schools through the implementation of STEAM education. For science education, PISA underscores the importance of assessing students' scientific literacy. In the context of STEAM education, the progressive development of science education is a pivotal component. We believe that a solid foundation in science is crucial for our students to become scientifically literate and equipped with 21st century competencies. Last year, we announced a new primary science curriculum framework for implementation starting from the 2025-26 school year. Building on the momentum, we make further strides by renewing the junior secondary science curriculum to strengthen the interface between the primary and secondary levels. With the revised curriculum to be released this school year, we have made reference to related documents from different sources, including the PISA 2025 Science Framework, to put greater emphasis on scientific inquiry and cross-disciplinary learning, incorporating topics related to aerospace technology, engineering and design, sustainable development, and earth science. Our move aims to foster scientific and innovative thinking from an early age, while promoting the integration and application of knowledge and skills across disciplines. To effectively meet the objectives of STEAM education, digital education and STEAM education complement each other remarkably well. The promotion of digital education in Hong Kong is based on our ongoing implementation of information technology in education. Our recent territory-wide survey on the implementation of IT in education in local schools last year revealed encouraging results. Nearly all the schools report that the implementation of e-learning has increased students' motivation through active knowledge construction and enhanced students' self-directed learning. The survey also shows strengthened teacher-student and student-to-student interactions, as well as improved collaborative learning among student peers. In addition, more than 90% of the schools report that e-learning has been conducive to strengthen students' critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, computational thinking competences, and creativity. It is really encouraging to see that the impact of the COVID pandemic on our students' learning was very much reduced, as shown in the PISA 2022 results, thanks to a smooth transition from regular classroom teaching to digital education. Let's talk about AI. Nowadays, we all know how powerful AI has become. Its emergence has a great impact on how we teach and learn. When we integrate AI with science education, we open up opportunities for pedagogical innovation and enhance students' learning outcomes in science, while at the same time, we need to enhance students' AI literacy. In the current school year, we are launching a pilot scheme to promote artificial intelligence-assisted teaching in junior secondary science to enhance the effectiveness of learning. We are also forming a steering committee on strategic development of digital education, which will offer advice and suggestions to the government on promoting digital education at the school level. We hope that through these efforts to promote digital education, we can better equip our new generation with essential knowledge, skills, as well as values and attitudes to meet the challenges in the contemporary digital world. I'm glad to know that PISA 2025 is going to look into students' ability to learn in the digital world, which is the most relevant subject in the ever-evolving digital landscape. As technology advances, our students need to equip with the competences that are essential to learning with technologies, including self-regulated learning and computational and scientific inquiry practices, as well as to be accurately aware of the pitfalls in digital learning and how to avoid them. We firmly believe that PISA will continue to provide the most useful indicators for policymakers to examine, evaluate, and monitor the effectiveness of our education systems. While education practitioners, on the other hand, will leverage the rich insight from PISA to inform school-level teaching and learning. Before closing, I'd like to express my heartfelt appreciation to the PISA Governing Board's Analysis and Dissemination Group, the Ministry of Science, Education and Youth of Croatia, and the OECD Secretariat for their exceptional effort in organizing this inspiring PISA conference. I also want to thank all the speakers for their forthcoming insights on how PISA evidence can effectively inform education policy and practices. With our concerted efforts, I'm confident that we can nurture a generation equipped with global perspective, future-ready skills, and the value and attitudes necessary to meet the 21st challenges. Thank you.
Next, Margot Schell and Sabrine Spit from the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science in the Netherlands will present on how PISA is used in the Netherlands to monitor students' basic skills. The title of presentation is one of the thermometers in monitoring students' basic skills in the Netherlands. Please.
Yeah, thanks so much for this introduction. And it's really a pleasure to hear from other countries how they use PISA. And I'm also very happy that I can share how we use PISA in the Netherlands. This is work together with Margot Schell, who thought she already did too much talking during the PGB meeting. So I now have the pleasure to speak to you. And what I will tell you about is how we use PISA as one of the measures to monitor students' basic skills in the Netherlands, and how policy to increase those basic skills is being evaluated and informed by making use of PISA, but also by making use of other sources of information. And to make sure the basic skills in the Netherlands, we refer to reading, writing, and maths, but we also refer to citizenship and digital literacy. But in this presentation, I will focus only on the first two of those. So reading and writing, and mathematics. And before we go into it, it's good to maybe have an idea of the Dutch context. And I will show you a graph from PISA 2018. So this is in 2019, when the previous PISA cycle came to an end and the results were published. And you here see the Dutch scores on reading. And the yellow line on the top is the line from the Dutch scores, and it's compared to a darker line, which is a set of EU countries that participated in all these PISA cycles and the OECD average. And what you can see is from 2003 onwards, the Dutch scores are actually quite higher, above this average. In 2015, they already decrease a bit and go more into the direction of these averages, but then in 2018, they dipped a bit below those averages. And this made quite a big fuzz in the Netherlands. There were a lot of Dutch media outlets who took this up. So here you see a news headline from the Dutch news broadcasting agency, which reads that Dutch pleasure in reading and also Dutch proficiency in reading has decreased in the couple of past years. So that's not really good reading, so to say. And this led to different initiatives because the results from PISA were not the only ones that showed that reading was not going so well in the Dutch population of students. There were also other national and international surveys that showed that these skills were not at the level that we want them to be in the Netherlands. And in a reaction to these kind of results from PISA, but also from other studies, the Dutch minister in 2022 launched a master plan, basic skills, which intended to increase the skills in reading and writing and in mathematics. And what this plan entails exactly is explained in this video, where this Dutch minister explains to a Dutch children TV news show what the master plan entails exactly.
Van lezen, rekenen, schrijven, of weten wie je met omgaat in Nederland. En we zien dat dat eigenlijk de afgelopen jaren steeds iets minder goed geworden is. Dat kinderen op school dat minder goed weten. En dat is eigenlijk heel erg. Dat heeft voor je toekomst misschien best wel grote gevolgen. Als je minder goed een sollicitatiebrief kan schrijven, minder goed werkt. Dus het is belangrijk dat je in school, bij jou in de klas, daar meer aandacht aan besteden. Bijvoorbeeld een uur extra per dag gewoon aan lezen of rekenen.
Yeah. So here, the Dutch minister, he explains that we see from many studies that reading and maths is not going so well in Dutch students, and that this is problematic for many reasons, and that in this plan there's extra time spent on these skills in classes. There were also other policy measures in this master plan, for example, that specific persons with expertise on these skills would visit schools to help them out. And these are, of course, very nice plans, but what we as policymakers and also as scientists would like to know is whether these plans work and whether we can evaluate them and whether the policy measures that are being taken are effective or not. And of course, PISA is one of the very useful sources to evaluate those measures. So we also have the results from 2022. These were published very shortly after the launch of the master plan, so we cannot really evaluate the effectiveness of the plan. However, when we look at the graph, so this is the same graph as we've seen before from reading, but now with the results from 2022 included as well, and we see that the yellow line drops even further. And if we also look at math, then we see also a decreasing line for the Netherlands on top. Of course, this can be partly due to COVID, as we've seen in other countries as well. But really, if we look at the reading scores, this decrease was already starting before COVID. Now, as I said before, we cannot really use this to evaluate the master plan itself. However, it shows that it's very urgent that this plan was launched and that there's something going on here. And we really can see that PISA is a really good thermometer to see whether there's something going on with these basic skills. However, as we also know, a thermometer is just one way of assessing whether something is going on. And if you're suspicious or you suspect that someone is ill, you don't just look at their temperature, but you also use other ways to assess whether something is going on. So you might, for example, take some blood, or you do a scan of a certain type of scan, because these different measures really complement each other in the diagnosis of what might be going on in an educational system in this case. And as mentioned before, there's a couple of very strong points of PISA, and that we can also see in the graphs before. So it measures this broad skill set in 15-year-olds. You have these long-term data which can be really used to get insight in long-term trends, and it allows for these international comparisons. But there's also some limitations to PISA, and that's not weaknesses of PISA, we think. It's just that you cannot do everything in one type of research. So for example, we have a single moment of observation, both that we only test 15-year-olds in PISA, but also that students who participate only participate once in the survey. It not always aligns very well with national curricula. There's also no population data. Of course, we have very representative samples, but there's also some error in taking a sample instead of taking the whole population when you look at these skills. And something that's especially relevant in the Dutch context is that it's a low stakes test. So it's not obligatory to participate. There's not much at stake for the students who take the test because it doesn't matter for their educational progress. Whereas there's other exams and tests that are conducted in the Netherlands that have a bit of higher stakes for these participants, and we know that they might perform differently on tests that have different stakes for the one who's taking them. And what I will show you in the next couple of slides is a couple of sources of information that in the Netherlands we use to complement the PISA outcomes, and it really paint a broader picture of how children in the Netherlands are doing in terms of these basic skills. And the first one is one that's familiar to many of you, or maybe to all of you, and that's other international surveys. So for example, TIMSS and PIRLS, one of the benefits that TIMSS and PIRLS have is that they test at another age. So we do not only get this picture of 15-year-olds, but also of the 10-year-olds that we as the Netherlands participate in. And what we can see from this is that the decrease in reading that we see also in PISA, we also see though this decrease in PIRLS, but the decrease that we saw in mathematics is not present in the same way in the 10-year-olds. So it shows a sort of different picture for the two skills when we look at a younger age group. And another valuable source is one you see here. So we don't only have the international surveys, but we also have national surveys. These are carried out by the Inspectorate of Education in the Netherlands. So they're being carried out on many different subjects. So not only on reading, writing, and mathematics, but also on geography, history, but especially the ones on reading, writing, and mathematics are very useful in the evaluation of this master plan. And the good point about them is that they align better with the national curriculum when it comes to reading, because the questions that are being used are really tapping into the skills that in the Dutch curriculum are important when we look at these skills. And again, in these surveys, we do see that reading is very much a problem in the Dutch population. So they actually make the picture that we see from PISA a bit stronger. And we are a bit more sure that even if we look at the national curriculum, there's still probably some problem with the reading skills in the Dutch students. So they also give another very valuable insight. And then one other source that we have is called the pupil monitoring system. And I'll explain in a bit what you see on these two graphs. But schools in primary education from grade 1 to grade 6 are obliged to use a pupil monitoring system in the Dutch educational system. It's optional in secondary education as well. But in this pupil monitoring system, students participate in an educational test twice a year, so halfway during the school year and at the end of the school year as well. And these results are primarily used by teachers in the classroom. They can see for each of their pupils how well they do compared to other students in general. The results are also shared with parents. So this is from one of our colleagues who said we could share this here. This was for her son who performed on 2 skills as well. So the results can be used both by the parents and by the teachers to look at individual students. But about half of the schools in the Netherlands also shares the outcomes from this pupil monitoring system with the Central Bureau of Statistics. So we have cohort data, we have data points twice a year for all students throughout primary education that we can also use to assess their basic skills. And it really adds to the picture that we can also follow single cohorts through multiple moments in time. So for example, the effects of COVID, we can really trace them because we have a cohort that we can track in multiple years afterwards. And we also can test across a bigger range of moments during their educational career. And for example, this allows to give very precise insights into the differences between different school types in the Netherlands. And that really is a valuable additional insight. And the fourth source that I will tell you a little bit about is the test that we take at the end of primary education. So when students are 11 or 12 years old, they take a test which indicates to which type of secondary education they should go. This is obligatory. All students take it because it determines to which secondary school type they can go to. And the data for this is shared, or is also, we also have it for all schools at the Ministry of Education. So we really have population data from a high stakes test, because it matters a lot for the pupils what they score on this test, because it determines to which kind of secondary education they can go. And one additional insight that we get from this is that the differences between reading and writing that we see in the international surveys and also in the national surveys is sort of reversed. So where we saw that reading and writing was the bigger problem based on the other surveys, in this end test at the end of primary education, we see that actually more students do not reach the national threshold for mathematics than for reading. So that's a very different picture than from the international surveys. And so all these different kind of sources that we explained together with PISA are bundled in what we call the Monitor Basic Skills. This was published a year ago. The next one will be published this Wednesday. And so this will include all the results from these different tests that have been published the past year. And this really allows us to both evaluate this master plan and also to inform new policy measures regarding the basic skills. And together what we learned from this is a couple of things I already said before, but what we really see is that this decline in language and mathematics, it has been aggravated during the COVID pandemic. However, what we can also see, and that's something that we cannot see just from PISA because it tests at 15-year-olds, but is that in primary education, we already observe a bit of a recovery from this decline. This recovery is not observed in secondary education. So it really helps us to place where the troubles in the Dutch the Dutch basic skills actually are precisely. What we do see, and that's something that's different to PISA, is that the share of students performing below the national threshold at the end of primary education is bigger in mathematics than in language. So this is opposed to PISA. And what we do see in secondary education is that performance is still not at the pre-COVID level, also not in these tests that are taken at the national level each year. And that also the declines in performance are more severe in secondary education than in primary education, and that's mirrored by PISA. So we really can use these additional sources of information to complement what we see in PISA, and that really helps us to single out where the policy initiatives should also focus on. That's not meant to say that everything should happen in secondary education, because we, as the whole educational system, has responsibilities in making sure that students reach the end of education and being able to read, write, and do maths properly. But we do get additional information that's really helpful in evaluating and informing these practices. So that's what I wanted to share with you on these matters. Thank you.
Okay, finally, the third presentation is from Juhani Rotopuro and Ajit Quackrim-Solvi from the University of Jyväskylä, Finland. And they will present how PISA and other large-scale assessments are used as tools for quality assurance in Finland. The title of their presentation is Assessment of Learning Outcomes, a Tool for Quality Assurance in Finland. Please.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Juhani Rotopuro, and my colleague Ajit Quackrim-Solvi will make this presentation together with me. So we are talking about something about our educational system and how these assessments are used inside of our education system. We are not talking about the results very much now. We are talking about how our assessments are done and how the results are used in our policy making. And we start from our educational system in Finland. And I'm not sure how familiar this is to you, but anyway, there are a few principles in our educational system, and they both are under the umbrella equity. And equity in our education system means equity of possibilities. It is very many times understood wrongly that it's equity of equal outcomes, and that's not possible, and that's not true at all. So it means that, first of all, the equity means entry to the education to everybody in Finland, wherever you live, whatever your background is, and things like that. And when we talk about some changes on the basis of our educational outcomes, we must always make a distinction. Are we making some kind of changes in our education system, or are we talking about something that we are making changes in our national core curriculum or something like that? So during last years, there have been only few remarkable changes in our educational system. One is this pre-primary education on the very low level. So that became compulsory a couple of years ago. And then other big change has been the compulsory learning age. It has been raised from 16 to 18 years. So these are something that has been really done in Finland. And second principle is that in Finland, at least for now, I'm not sure about what our government is now doing, but we have been proud that there are no dead ends in our education system. Whatever route you select when you're young, there's still possibility to come to the doctoral thesis. So after primary education, you can select an upper general education or vocational route, but it doesn't close any doors in your future life. So this is the main idea of our educational system, and it is under equity. And then something that is quite different compared with any other country in Finland is our assessment system in Finland. So we don't have any inspectoral system, we don't have standardized tests, we don't have any national, so there are only one high-stakes test in Finland, and it's the matriculation exam. So it means that if you select after basic school, secondary school, you select the general upper secondary school, you have to make the matriculation exam, and that is the main route for higher education studies. But during basic school, no standardized tests at all. And all our assessments are sample-based. And what you see here is that, okay, you can find PISA there, but PISA is one part of our assessment system. So it's not the only one. Even it is the most popular one. And of course, always when PISA results come, there will be a month or two hullabaloo in Finland, and then it calms down. And of course, why PISA is very important in Finland is that, if I didn't mention, our education system, the main reform was done 1972. When Finland gave up this parallel system in basic education. So we had parallel system of private schools and public schools, but after 72, there were only public schools, and after 72, there was about 30 years fight whether or not Finland made the wrong or right decision. And then first PISA results came. The first PISA came 2000, and the results were published in 2001, and Finland was at the top. So PISA saved our basic education. That is one thing that is sure. But Finland has been in international evaluations much before PISA. So EIA studies, Finland has been there from beginning of 60s or something like that. And the difference between PISA assessments and EIA assessment is that EIA assessments are curriculum-based. OECD PISA measures more or less general skills to be applied. And then we also have, I wouldn't call them national, I like to call them domestic evaluations because they are not standardized for whole cohort. But we have also Finnish Education Evaluation Center who makes also assessments. But this is something how our assessment system is constructed. So now, Neset, please.
Thank you. So I will present you what kind of research we are now inspired with, Juhani, because it seems that recently the other Nordic countries, they have been doing quite remarkable research about how the international and national assessment of learning outcomes have underpinned policy decisions. And we are really inspired of that. For instance, Nordic countries and Estonia as well, they use the assessment data and learning outcomes in their planning of all kinds of activities in municipality level, but also national level. I have some examples from Sweden and Iceland, as you see here in this presentation, how, for instance, PISA, not scores only, but the PISA results have been used for changing educational policies. And maybe there was something Juhani mentioned before, but I'm going to underline that in Finnish context, we are quite moderate. We are reflecting quite a long time and doing quite moderate changes, as we are going to show you a bit later. So we have been doing research, and we are going to continue to look how the educational policy in Finland has been using in this context the PISA results, but also the other national and international assessment results. We have been analyzing government programs, the two most recent ones, then educational policy report, and then educational review, and then some other guide, such as development program and reports, etc. I'm sorry that the two following dias and tables are going to look a bit awful, but I will explain them a bit later. So we have a few research questions. Juhani mentioned the extending compulsory education. We had that in 2021. We are looking that with you a bit later. Then we are looking how the learning outcomes has been ensuring the quality of basic education. And then our last research question here is how learning outcomes have been used as a guidance tool in basic education, as we don't have much measurements, as Juhani mentioned previously. We have been using mainly critical content analysis, and the data are the documents I just mentioned to you. So for the first research question, we have been looking the government program from 2019, and I have been picking just some examples. How does it look in that government program document, which is more or less like white paper? Then there are examples from report of educational policy and right to learn report. And you see the measures and the learning outcomes. There are national and international ones. And for the second question, the same kind of analysis is done. And you can see here that PISA survey are also mentioned there quite several times. And to and to, in a way, do a kind of analysis. It seems that in government programs, so documents that are white papers and really conducting documents, it seems that PISA results are more or less a kind of synonym for learning outcomes. So PISA means learning outcomes. I have some examples here. But when we are going to look further, for instance, educational policy reports, it comes a bit more detailed. Teams, pearls, and national assessments are mentioned there. And when we are looking the other educational guidance documents, so it's quite detailed when we are looking the educational system and the reforms we just mentioned.
Okay, so what should we say about PISA? Well, does PISA measure learning outcomes? Is it good measure for comparing educational systems? Well, I have been in many international conferences and things like that, and people around the world have said that, oh, we like to take your educational system to our country. And I have said, be my guest, but you also have to take the Finnish society with it. So I think that PISA measures a certain kind of outcomes, but very much is something that PISA cannot measure. At least in Finland, it means that a lot of what is happening in schools comes from the outside, what the society, what the children are bringing into classroom, what is happening in Finnish society. So that is one restriction of this PISA. And also, I'm not sure if PISA measures really what the schools are doing right or wrong. So PISA means some kind of general knowledge that education provides, and it's very good measurement for that. But anyway, this is a question this is something that we are some kind of, not, well, anyway, a little bit confused, I would say.
Well, our last discussion point, as I mentioned previously, is that we have been looking also the other neighborhood countries, for instance, Nordic countries and Estonia. And it seems that not only in Finland, where the white papers are done, and the PISA results are mentioned there as a synonym for learning outcomes, it seems that also in Estonia, in Sweden, and in Denmark, the PISA results from 22 have an impact for educational policy. We are continuing with Juhani, doing some research papers afterwards, and now we are thanking for your interest. Thank you.
What comes next is the 10 minutes Q&A. I will now open the floor for questions in the room and online. Since the time is very limited, you can raise any question to any one of the presentations, and I will pick at most 3 questions. Okay, who would like to ask questions? Okay, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm from Germany and a member of the PISA governing board that has had its 58th meeting over the past 3 days. And my question goes to the colleagues from Finland. You just said that you're not convinced that PISA can meaningfully or sufficiently measure what's going on in schools. Do you have any suggestions how PISA could be improved in order to do so? Thank you.
Well, I'm saying what means that PISA doesn't measure what schools are doing right or wrong is that it doesn't, it's not curriculum based. So that is the difference between EIA studies and PISA studies. So it, in a certain way, it measures general knowledge, but it doesn't measure what about the knowledge or skills have been reached outside of school system, and what is also the effect of a certain kind of things. In Finland, for example, we have several good measurements for, let's say, the welfare questionnaire to schools, but we cannot combine things that happen outside of the school. That is what I'm meaning.
Anyone in the room would like to ask a question? Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Ides Nikese from University of Leuven. My question is to Mr. Spitz. You mentioned the problem that PISA is a low stakes test, like some other tests, and maybe that might induce some bias, some downward bias in the results, and that's what you implicitly suggested. Now, there's a general feeling, at least among colleagues in Belgium, that the piling up of testing and national tests, etc., reinforces that fatigue of students in testing. I know that PISA is doing some research as well on the efforts that students make in seriously filling out their questionnaires and their tests. What can we say about the potential fatigue of testing?
Thanks for this question. I don't know about the general fatigue of questionnaires. So I'm also not sure if the stakes have much to do with the general fatigue, but maybe more with an implicit lower bar that the students themselves have when they participate in the test. So that when there's really something at stake, they will do their utmost best to perform as best as possible as they can. And that this is maybe a little bit less the case when this is a lower stakes test. Maybe Margot also wants to add something to this.
Yeah, so if I might add to that, if we, for instance, look at national exams at the end of secondary education, there we don't see a decrease in the marks they reach or the abilities they reach. So if there really is pressure, we saw that at the end test in primary school, but also in secondary school, we see that they perform better. So in that sense, we see that the stakes of the test matter. And just to come back that the downward trend we see, we don't think that that has anything to do with the stakes of the PISA test, because we don't think that the stakes of the PISA test have changed over the years. As you say, testing fatigue in general has grown, but we don't see evidence yet, at least in the Netherlands, that this also contributes to more or less motivation on low stakes tests.
Okay, we have just heard two questions addressed to the second and third presenters. Anyone in the room would like to raise question to our first presenter from Hong Kong?
This is Sarah from Medical University in Australia. So since Australia is very close to Hong Kong, and I'm really interested in the point you mentioned about AI for science education. And you particularly mentioned about you started the scheme in the junior secondary. Now, first, could you clarify what's the junior secondary is? And also that I'm wondering, like, why in particular that you choose at that certain age or certain grade level? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the AI for science in the junior secondary is just a supplementary module, which encourage the students to explore the use or to have a taste to know more about the use of AI in the daily lives and connect it to their learning in science subjects. So it is not a content-based or a skill-based program for the students in using AI, but to let them to have the exposure to the applications and the daily uses of AI. So this is a supplementary module which schools can make good use of the module to optional. It's not a compulsory, but most of the schools can, depends on the teachers' ability and the students' interest, they will do some adaptation on the school-based level. So I think this is a very wide space of exploration for the schools and the teachers.
Okay, I would like to ask any question asked online.
Yes, there is one question online to the colleagues from Finland who mentioned that if anyone wants to take the Finnish education system, you need to take the Finnish society. And so one of the question is if there's any way to measure how to, I would say, if you can describe, I guess, the specificities of the Finnish societies that you think are also contributing to this success. And then a second question is that Morocco has established, I don't know who this question is attributed to, so maybe the speakers can choose to speak, but the second question is, Morocco has established several educational reforms, but unfortunately, despite the efforts deployed, the PISA results of Moroccan students remain disappointing. How can we remedy these results? It's a large question, but if anyone has insights to this question, please also pick it up.
Okay, let the Finnish team answer the first question.
Okay, quite difficult one. I was trying quickly reflect the specificity of Finnish society, but I would say that one which is really difficult to explain to someone who has been living in Finland is a kind of trust we have in the educational system. I'm not so sure whether it is something that is going to break down a piece by right this moment, but I think that we share the common idea that education in general and schooling and teaching and teachers, they have had a kind of trust from the society, and that is something which is a bit difficult to explain, but it's also maybe something that explains how the system has been working quite a long time as it is.
Yeah, I would say that this Finnish education system is kind of national consensus.
Okay, anyone from Hong Kong, from the Netherlands would like to answer the second question? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I have particular suggestions for reforms that should be taken in Morocco, because I don't know the system there, or I don't have enough information. But one thing I think what we saw in our presentation and what we tried to show is that it might be helpful to see if there's other sources of information that you can help to identify where the problems are, and that maybe PISA alone is then not enough to pinpoint what facets of the educational system your reform should target. So that's the best advice I can give.
And I think from Hong Kong's experience, PISA is one of many data we have to feed back to our curriculum development. We also do the cross comparison with cross-reference to other assessment we have. For example, with data we collect from our public examinations, or we're looking at students' work. And also because since the 2002, we have participated in the PISA test, and we also compare our performance changes over the years to see the trend. We not just compare to other jurisdictions, but we compare to ourselves. So maybe we can identify the areas to improve in our own system. That's the Hong Kong's experience.
Okay, the 10 minutes Q&A session actually come to an end, and I must thank the three teams from Hong Kong, from the Netherlands, and from Finland to present us three excellent experiences. Okay, thank you.